Hello everyone, my name is Max VonNeumann. I also go by the monochrome Formal or Formal Casting, and if you're watching this video, this means you kind of want to learn about Rocket League. Am I the best person to tell you about it? We'll let that be the judge. I'd like to think I'm pretty experienced in the game itself, if not playing, commentating on it from the highest levels to, well, pretty much just pickup games that sometimes happen on stream. I've been involved with AEL through their high school and intervarsity leagues, and even have gone so far as to do the RLCS Pro Circuit for Oceania. What this video is going to be about is essentially just laying down the foundations of what Rocket League is exactly. And it's going to be done over two parts. As you can see, a list is going to come up covering all the topics we're going to go through. And I'm hoping you are able to get something out of it. These are the basic fundamentals that people, honestly, for the first almost year that you pick up and play this game, that you should be working towards. But it's not just the fact that I'm still sort of less experienced than a lot of others who are at the top of their game, but I've also been very integrated and experienced at the top of Rocket League in itself. Right now, I just kind of have this main menu here, but I'm going to do a little bit of talking about myself, and maybe this will help you out there build some trust in me about this. Actually, no, wait, before we even do that, let's talk a little bit about Rocket League itself as a game. I'm kind of skipping ahead. I'll explain why in a sec why I skipped ahead. It's actually a little bit embarrassing. And by a little bit, I mean very embarrassing, as I may have... No, I didn't destroy my notes. That would be silly. Here we are. Yes, here we are. All right, Rocket League. So let's just answer that question first before we go too far. What exactly is Rocket League? Now, it's kind of hard to define because on one end it's a sport game, but it's not really a sport that you can play in real life. It's kind of like a racer because you're driving cars, but at the same time you're playing football. So I don't know. I always kind of label it under sports game. And this is important for a later part that I'm going to be after. So for now, we're just going to label it a sport game. Right now, according to Active Player, I don't really know what Active Player is. I just kind of wanted to look up, how many people are playing this game. Well, they told me that right now there have been over 90 million players logging in across both January and February this year. On the daily basis, 6 million people are logging on and playing, over the course of a day. So when I'm talking about how this is still a large game, those are the numbers that kind of back it up. Ever since it became free to play, those numbers have absolutely exploded. When it comes to the esports side of things, the last major that happened, it actually peaked with over 250,000 concurrent viewers during the finals, I believe. And this just happened last weekend. So those are massive numbers when you look at esports. As for the game itself, it can be played in a couple different ways, but for the most part, you're looking at teams of 1 to 4 people playing what is essentially a 5-minute game of football. And I'll get more into that when we sort of break down the different game modes. But it's essentially football and or soccer, whichever you want to call it. You have cars, you have a ball, and the object is to drive the cars into the ball, into the goal. And in hindsight, I should have opened with that. Either way, yeah, that's the basis of the game. We'll get into it. And because it is a sports game, as I mentioned before, and because it's very visual to see what you have to do and how you have to play the game, it's very digestible right now to both mainstream audiences, I feel, as evidenced by this number right here. It's digestible to high schools as well, just because, again, it's one of those pick-up and easy-to-play games. It doesn't come with the stigma perhaps like an FPS game would have. And what I enjoy the most, and this kind of goes back into my whole stance on high school sports, something that I may cover in a second video, is that you learn a lot of the same skills that you can pick up when playing traditional sports. Skills such as communication, which I think my good friend Lethal for Life might be explaining as well in a different video. Team building exercises, learning how to balance between work, play, study, and practice. And yes, practice is a very serious part of this game. Practice is how you get better, and I don't just mean picking up and playing the game. Rocket League is unique in that it has a very detailed training mode, which I'm going to be going into a little bit later just to kind of show things off, and 100% it's something that you should be doing. And the process of playing these games, I think, has opened the doorway for a lot of students who might not have had that same interest in physical traditional sports. And I'm not saying that, this is for people who don't want exercise. Exercise is obviously important, and that's how come I mentioned balance before. Finding that balance between, video game play and getting that exercise is a very vital part of that high school life. So it's always important to keep that in mind. And I think under proper coaching and tutelage in a high school sports scene, that is something that can easily be explored. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, the same skills as traditional sports are there. And so that's what Rocket League is the basis. Now, for the Who Am I? Not to ego boost too much. I have all these things planned out so you can see how I was planning going in. But that's me. That's me right there. Formal casting, Maximilian VonNeumann. This is the amount of broadcasts I have done physically shoutcasting Rocket League. As you can see, we've got some University Rocketeers, some RLCS, which is the Pro League, some Asia Pacific stuff, and this event, literally on location in Dubai, not to kind of tug my cheek right there, but that was pretty sick. It was a kind of like Australia versus Middle East show matches. Was pretty cool. And as you can see, I have done a lot of events. So I've seen a lot of Rocket League, and the thing about all this as well is this is all sorts of skill levels and all sorts of game modes. You can see starting off with the 1v1s, then moving to the 3v3s, then moving to AEL University, some of the high school stuff, some draft leagues, and all the way back up top to the RLCS, which is the pro scene. So been seeing and doing a lot because I believe, A, it's a lot of fun to do, but B, esports is a growing industry. It is something that I only see expanding in the future, but it's expanding in a way that you really get out of it what you're willing to put in, which is why outside of just doing shoutcasting for the game, if I go back to the overview, I don't think it shows everything. That's cool. But I have done some organizing of events as well, just some like freestyle matches and some showcase matches. I've also, worked before as a spectator, aka kind of like the cameraman, so like I've been behind the scenes at that. When it comes to these AEL events as well, I'll frequently be producing using OBS Ninja, so I've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff as well, so it's an industry I've gone quite close in. And this logo right here, I don't know why that's still there, Team Esper. I have managed for Team Esper on 2 occasions. I don't want to go too much further into that. You can look up how they've gone. The second time went a lot better than the first time is all I aspire to comment on that one. Not that I necessarily hide from it, but oh yeah, interview on ESPN as well. But that's enough self-aggrandizing. The whole point I'm doing this is so even though I'm not the best at this game, I do want you to trust what I'm saying. Like, these are kind of trial, tested, and true methods that I'm going to be going over and some important key concepts. So now that you know who I am, I'm hoping you can trust that what I'm saying is true. Anyway, so that's who I am. Let's go into the game right now and look at the different modes of Rocket League, I think. So you have casual, competitive, tournaments, training, extra modes, custom games. Casual and competitive will give you the same playlists. Casual, 3v3, 2v2, 1v1, 4v4. As I mentioned before, the game can be played in any of these different ways, depending on, how many people you want to play with. 1v1s, probably the best for improving your individual mechanics. 2v2s, probably the best in, like, getting used to game pace, giving yourself opportunities to go for more mechanical plays in a more competitive environment. And 3v3s are what is considered the traditional style of Rocket League. That's what's played in most tournaments. That's what's played at the professional level. And 4v4 is chaos, as it is aptly named. And unless you're in a mood to just fool around and have fun with friends, I never recommend touching it. That is why 4v4 not included in ranked. Ranked, you have your 3v3s, 2v2s, 1v1s. You have placements, you get a rank. I haven't really played my placements yet. That's neither here nor there. Tournaments, there are different tournaments that the game will kind of throw into. This is not the same tournaments that I'm talking about with these organized events. These are just sort of like in-client tournaments. They happen, multiple times a day, 3v3s, 2v2s, neither here nor there. Those are all ways to get into the basic game. Now, there are other modes as well, these extra modes. Rumble is you get strange power-ups. Drop Shot is on a special map where the whole idea is to kind of drop the ball in those little holes right there that you make. Hoops is basketball instead of soccer. And Snow Day is ice hockey instead of soccer as well. Different ball, same field, different ball. Goals are elevated. These games are not normally seen in tournaments at all. Very rarely you will kind of get to those. It's just good to know that those are there. I'm just kind of like explaining everything that you see when you come to the game, and deciding what you want to do. Those are the extra modes. And then you have custom games where you can play against the AI. You can create private matches, which is, very important. And then there's the all-important workshop, where you can see sort of different either custom maps people have made, or sometimes you will get training tools in this, like the dribbling challenge, which is good to practice dribbling on. I'm terrible at it, but, it's still a good place to go. There's also sort of shot-taking ones. And then training, as I was saying before, which is going to be very important. Obviously, your in-game tutorials there. You also have custom training sort of packets that people will have made, 10 shots to master, where you go in. You can see defense ones more akin to the diamond level. That's probably where I would be going. High aerials to practice your aerial shots. I'll explain what all these mean in just a few moments. And then there's the sort of the in-game ones. And then there's the all-important free play, which is, I will actually show you in the best map right now, because I have the ability to do that. It's kind of great. I can jump in and kind of show you. So yeah, free play, or you drive around, and you can practice, hitting the ball as you'd like. Right now, we're going to minimize you once again, because we're going to go over some Rocket League terminology. This is, I think, a very important part of the game. As you can see, there is a lot of terminology. So first things first, kickoff. Kickoff is exactly what it sounds like. Kickoff is the start of the game. It's where the ball sits in the middle of the pitch. Everyone kind of races at it, tries to smack it, and it's a kickoff just like in soccer or football. But the difference is the two sides will play at it at the same time. And there are distinct strategies for the kickoff. And I think that will be covered in a different video. But kickoff can have multiple strategies for various situations. Boost is what I was using to drive around really quickly. We're going to cover this a little bit more when I talk about the map itself, but the boost is what you collect to pick up speed and give yourself sort of speed boost. It also can propel you in the air so you can fly, but boost is that meter. You can see the boost meter in the bottom right corner. That's boost. All right. Supersonic is what is called when you hit max speed. When you hit max speed, you go supersonic. The car kind of changes again. I can kind of give you a little example of it. So now we're boosting. Boom. That's the supersonic. You can see the sort of particle effects flying. There, it's like, going through warp drive in Star Wars or something. Just boom, there it is, the supersonic. You get the trail behind the car. If you hit another car, you can demo them. I'll explain that in a moment. Boost starved is a phrase that will sometimes be used. That is when your team, or you as a player, has been unable to gather boost for a significant amount of portion, and you are slower than everyone else, and you're having a bad time. We'll cover that again in the map, which will be coming up shortly, but we will get back to that. A demo, as I mentioned before, is when you are traveling at supersonic speed, you hit into an enemy card, they explode. Now, they're not out for the entirety of the game. They will come back in about 2 seconds in either corner on their defensive half, but that's something that happens there. Sometimes, if you fail a demo, you get a Rule 1. Rule 1 is a meme, but it is still important because it is a key part of terminology. That is when two cars hit each other head-on and kind of interlock with each other. So, essentially what it is if both cars continue to drive straight, neither will move. And it's considered a sign of sportsmanship that once you are engaged in this situation, both players continue to stay in that until the next goal is scored. Now, it's not an official rule, but it is, if that makes sense. It's lingo, it's part of the terminology, it's part of the history, something you should learn about. Double jump, pretty straightforward. Now, as I was jumping around before, you can see when you drive, you can push a button to sort of jump, and you can push the button again to double jump to give yourself an extra bit of boost. Now, the double jump is important because you can do a couple things with it, like you can jump, and then you can hit it. Oh, I kind of stuffed it, but you jump, and then you can hit it again to do a flick. Or if you can call it a flip, you can call it a flick, depending if you hit the ball. But there's ways how you can manipulate that second jump to kind of move your car into different situations. That's sort of the double jump right there. Use it to help launch yourself up a little bit more as we go through it. Then when you sort of go for the flick, so the flick is honestly when you kind of boom and flick into the ball. Like, that was really bad. Again, not the best at this game. But sort of go, and then you can flick yourself into the ball. Those kind of are considered flick shots. There are different kinds of flick shots as well. Things like the half flip, which is where you use that flip. You flip halfway through, and then you use that second jump to cancel, and you flip yourself back around. And what winds up happening is you do sort of a 180, and then you bring yourself back the other way. A speed flip is a thing that looks like a side flip. So this is a common pitfall. Speed flips look like that, but that's not a speed flip. A speed flip is just a technique that you can use through the flip to get yourself to supersonic speed instantly. A flip reset. Now, again, these are terms you might use when you first pick up the game. Probably won't be expected to do any of these things, to be quite honest. But, again, people will talk about it. People will mention it. It's good to know what it is. The way how the flip works is every time all 4 wheels touch the ground, your jumps reset. So a flip reset is when you get all 4 wheels on the ball to give yourself an extra flip. So you have your 1 flip, but then all 4 wheels hit the ball. You reset that counter. You're able to flip again, and you can keep doing that as many times as you can. Extremely difficult. Just saying that. Again, this is terminology. Musty flick is a type of trick shot. Probably don't need to include it now. Maybe something we can go back to later. Rotation. All right. Now, this is important. When people talk about rotations, they talk about their flow around the pitch in and of itself and how you rotate around it to constantly keep yourself in position. Rocket League is not like traditional sport or traditional soccer, I should say, where players kind of stay in their zone. It's constant fluid motion. To be honest, I kind of compare it more to ice hockey, actually, than anything else, because ice hockey players, they are constantly moving around. Rotation is that sort of motion, how you rotate around the pitch, which I should have right here, yeah. So, you know, essentially, this is a very brief idea, but it's like, you know, the ball's here, you're here, you kind of rotate around, you hit the ball, smack, it goes down, your next teammate follows down behind you, you rotate, collect some of these boosts. I'll get more into that, but you get the idea. The idea is that you're kind of always moving almost in this circular way out, away from your teammates, and then that way someone is always going to be in position to go to the ball, so knowing your rotation is important. Spacing is a term used to define realistically how close or far away you are playing from your teammates. So when I say something like tighter spacing, like car 1 is here, car 2 might be here, not a lot of space in between the two, that would be tight spacing. Whereas if car 1 was here and car 2 was down here, I'd call that a lot looser spacing. And car 3 might be, you know, all the way over here. There's a lot of space between them. Whereas with the tighter spacing, car's not there. No. Car's maybe here going this way and going for this tighter rotation. Tighter because, you know, it's a lot closer. And there are different reasons why sometimes you'd want the looser spacing. Sometimes you'd want the tighter spacing. What you don't want is no spacing, because that would be something like this. Uh-oh, we're too close. That's tight spacing. That's typically very, very bad. So that's what you want to avoid. And that's why when people say something like improve your spacing or spacing is important, it's giving your teammates room at the end of the day. So that is spacing. The box. Box is pretty straightforward. This area. The box in front of the net. What is next? The backboard. Again, pretty straightforward. I think the backboard is all of the wall back behind the net. A lot of passes and a lot of setups are done through utilization of the backboard. Learning how to play defense on the backboard is a very difficult skill, but when people tell you to go back to the backboard, that's super important. Similarly, back post defense. Right, so these are the posts on the goal. And when people talk about post defense, essentially what they're thinking is like, let's say the ball is here, right? And a car is coming at you from here. If you are playing front post defense and you are facing this direction, you can really only cover about this much of the goal. But if you're playing back post, like you're saying you back here on the back post, driving in this direction, you can control pretty much anywhere on the goal that you're able to save. So when people are playing post defense is when they're kind of playing around the back post from where the ball is coming from. So that is important to know. And that is a very strong way to play defense when you first play this game. Don't play goalie. Do not sit here and do nothing. Bad. The reason for that being, if you are sitting still, you are not moving, you are not rotating. As I said before, which is important in the fast-paced game of Rocket League, you are not collecting boost, which I will get into shortly. And realistically, you can only defend kind of just that small area in front of you when you do that. So like you're sitting here stagnant, realistically you can only cover about this much range, which is not very good. Whereas if you're playing post defense, you're not sitting still, you're on the move, essentially. You can cover everything in the goal. You can also cut inside if you have to. You can cut for that boost outside. You have all of these options. Not to mention, even if you miss, you have a teammate coming around to help you because, yay, spacing. They're going to get this boost as well, and it's going to be great. So, yeah, defense positioning, super, super important. So a redirect is essentially like a pass. Like, let's say person, ball was here, car takes shot, bang, and then second, but there's a defender here. Oh, no. Well, second attacker is here, and they're going to boom the ball as soon as it gets there, bonk, redirected into the goal. So it's essentially taking a shot that's on target and then almost turning it into a pass, even though it was going to be going in the goal regardless, just to throw defenders off. You kind of redirect it into the net. That's what people are talking about. Again, a lot of these might seem obvious, right? But they're just common phrases, so they're important to know, so that's a redirect. Fake, exactly what it sounds like. You pretend you're going for the ball. You don't go for it. Usually this goes hand in hand with tight spacing because you want your next teammate to be the next one there. Boom, boom. Dunk, not what you think. I know in basketball the dunk is the slam dunk. In Rocket League, the dunk, so the car is here. They have the ball. They're driving this way. And then all of a sudden, defender man goes right after they make contact, blam, and smashes it. That's the dunk. You're essentially dunking it over the top of your opponent. So that's what a dunk is. That's what people mean when they say a dunk. Dribbling is when you dribble the ball on top of your car. Not in front of it, but like on top of your car so the ball is not hitting the ground. It can be done on ground level where you're kind of just resting it on the hood of your car, or it can be done as an aerial where you're continuing to maintain control of the ball while it's in the air. And if I was good enough, I'd show you how to do that. We already went over post defense. Squishy save. It's a kind of trick save where I can actually go back to the game for this one. So let's pretend that ball is coming for the shot right now. Squishy save is when you go, woo, boom, and hit the ball. Doing that, essentially driving through the back of the goal. It's a trick save. Cool. Good terminology to know. Wall shot is when you take a shot off of the wall. So, like, let's say the ball was up here along this wall. This is where you take that shot, bang, and it'll bounce and roll in. That's essentially a wall shot. Ceiling shot is when you take the shot off the ceiling. Similar thing as the wall shot. Pinch is when two cars. Go back to my drawing. All right. So let's pretend this is the ball. And then car A is coming like this, and car B is coming like this, and then they hit the ball at the same time, and they pinch it much more faster than normal towards the opponent's net. Sometimes this is done intentionally, sometimes this is not done intentionally. You'll see what it is. Third man, right. So remember when I was talking about spacing before? Spacing. Now, let's say you're playing tight spacing, right? So car 1 here. I love how there's always different sizes, kind of going around like that. Car 2 kind of doing their thing, going around like this. The third man might be the one back here playing post defense. And essentially, they act as that last line of defense, or they could be that last attacker. So these two will be constantly in rotation, following the ball, so they could be going around this thing in this motion. But if either of these two ever make a mistake or mess up, or if there's an opening in front of the net with these two slightly out of position, third member goes whoop around, smashes it. It's the third player back, essentially. That's what the third man is. Pretty straightforward. All right, I think we're going to have time to finish the terminology. I don't think we're going to have time to go through everything, which is good because that means I'm going to have a second video probably ready to go at the end of this. Awesome. So that is the third man. Hat trick, pretty obvious. Scoring 3 goals in a game, that's a hat trick. Carries over. Now, assists are interesting in Rocket League. Assists are awarded when you are the last teammate to touch the ball before the one who scores the goal. That is how you get a recorded assist. I kind of put that in there just to kind of explain how it gets, because it gives you points if you get assists as well. They can be seen as just as important, because oftentimes, the third player or the second man, which would be the more middle player, are going to be the ones who score the goal, but the assist will usually go for the player playing up front. Oh, ball chasing. Typically seen as a negative thing, but that's where you forego spacing, forego rotation. So, like, let's say we have our cars here. They're going around. Woohoo. This is what we're supposed to do. We're all rotating around. Again, tight spacing. I probably should have made it a bit looser. But instead of rotating around, he hits the ball, and the guy next one should be coming back around with that momentum, right? You go, nah, I want to hit it again. You break the rotation. You chase the ball. No matter what, you're the one who's chasing after the ball. Teammate's still going for it. Nah, I want to go for the ball as well. That's ball chasing. Again, straightforward. And it's considered a bad practice because it breaks your rotation. So there will be a spot in that circle where there is a gap, and a gap can be exploited. And sometimes you wind up getting in your teammate's way, and you have a bad time. So, yeah, this is a very basic intro to the game and its terminology. Make of it what you will. Alrighty, so that's the end of part 1. Part 2 is going to be coming out soon, so don't worry too much about that. Thank you all, though, for tuning in. I hope you picked something up out of this. As you can tell during the recording, I kind of thought I would be able to squeeze it all in one. It wasn't the case. We're going to have to do it in 2, but that's all well and good. That second part, I think it's going to be a little bit more polished than the first as well, and that's when we're going to get into watching replays and getting into the nitty-gritty of it all. So once again, thank you. Any feedback, send it on to appropriate channels. @FormalCasting on Twitter is a good place to do it. Thank you.